Call the meeting to order. Don, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Dardis.
Here.
Mayor Mahoney.
Here.
Mayor Carlson. Mr. Steen. Ms. Thompson.
Here.
Ms. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. Redlinger.
Here.
Mr. Grinberg.
Here.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Here.
Mr. Peterson.
I'm here.
Mr. Reeds. Ms. Madriga.
Here.
Quorum is present.
I visited with Mr. Steen last Friday, and he was en route on an international trip. So that's Rick's excuse for today. He's out of the area. Item number 2 is to approve the minutes of December 13, 2023. They are attached and it's on page 3. They have been distributed.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mayor Mahoney. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Grinberg seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of December 13, 2023 as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next is item number 3 is to approve the order of the agenda. Again, it's before you and it has been distributed.
Move to approve. Second.
Thank you, Commissioner. Grinberg is moved. Mayor Mahoney is second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I would call the Finance Committee's attention to an item that has been added at the request of legal counsel John Shockley. There will be an item under 8E, and that will be the interest earnings allocation, and that's for information only, but Mr. Shockley would like to share that with the Finance Committee. So I'm assuming that's all right with the second and the motion to amend the agenda. My apologies that I didn't mention it earlier. Moving on. Now we're on the approval of the bills. We call on Ms. Thompson to share that with us, please.
The list of bills is on page 6 of your packet. Bills for the month of January total $6.9 million. It is most of the usual characters, nothing unusual in that item. Any questions?
Are there any questions from Ms. Thompson? This is an action item and a roll call vote.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mayor Carlson moves, Mayor Mahoney seconds to approve the finance report, the approval of bills as presented by Mrs. Thompson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Don, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Dardis.
Yes?
Mayor Mahoney.
Yes.
Mayor Carlson.
Yes.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Redlinger.
Yes.
Mr. Grinberg.
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Reeds.
Yes.
Ms. Madriga.
Yes.
And that is everyone.
Thank you, Don. Item number 5 is the finance report. Again, we call on Ms. Thompson for that. It's on page 38 and has been distributed.
Page 38 is the year-to-date and prior year's earnings. 39 is the balance sheet, which is typically what we go through. So for the month ending December 30th, the grand total, including the budget fund, we had assets of $211,240,524 and liabilities of $56,633. So the net position at the end of the year was $211,183,891.
Any questions? Anybody from the Finance Committee? Again, this is an action item.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mayor Mahoney. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Dave Pipcorn seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the finance report as presented by Ms. Thompson. Is there any further discussion? This one can be a voice call, so all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 6 is the Executive Director's Financial Report. Call on Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Finance Committee. You'll see on our first revenue page here, the month revenues of $6.5 million, which incidentally closely match our bills this month. Overall, for fiscal year 2023 was 159 million, and you can see the breakdowns there of sales tax versus legacy bond draws. So all in all, sitting in pretty good shape. The next page, as far as our cost obligations are concerned and our tracking of our budget, we had a fiscal year 2023 ending cost of 144 million. So certainly below what we had anticipated for our cash budget for 23. As I've mentioned in other meetings, really that's related to land acquisition cost and milestone payments to the developer. So I don't think we need to dig into level 2 unless anybody has any questions, but overall I think we did a good job of managing our budget last year. So.
Committee, any questions? Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Paulson, obviously our biggest to-do item is our milestone payments, and we see an actual cost today to 0. And at 4 to 5%, that's great for all of us. But when are we anticipating that first outlay to be requested by our developers?
Yeah, so if we look at the cash budget for next year, we're anticipating, a small amount. I think we were under 20 million. Yep. So we're really anticipating probably the large costs coming in 2025. So,
Okay. Well, good for us. Thank you.
And that's a unique structure, obviously, of the public-private partnership and one that really kind of transfers that risk off of the public entities over to the private developer as far as getting the final work products done and approved by us as far as quality is concerned before we make those transactions. So.
Any additional questions? All right, then. This item is an informational item, so moving on to item number 7, DA Board Approval Contracting Actions. There's a notation on the agenda that there's nothing for approval. Do you have anything?
Nope, that's all we have.
Okay, then we move on to item number 8, Other Business. First one is the election of the Vice Chair for the Finance Committee. I have visited with Mr. Rick Steen, who has been serving as our Vice Chairman of the Finance Committee, and he has indicated a willingness to continue at that.
Move to approve.
Mayor Mahoney, you nominate Rick Steen. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Mayor Carlson seconds. It's been moved and seconded to nominate Rick Steen for Vice Chairman of the Finance Committee. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, nominations are closed. Vice Chairman. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Oh, excuse me, it's a roll call vote. Don, would you please call a roll?
Mayor Dardis.
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney.
Yes.
Mayor Carlson.
Yes.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
yes,
Mr. Redlinger.
Yes.
Mr. Grimberg. Mr. Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Reeds.
Yes.
Ms. Madriga.
Yes.
And that is everyone.
Thank you, Don. 8B is the South University Flood Wall Repair Project. Again, we call on Mr. Paulson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this item was previously reviewed by the Finance Committee, so I won't go through the full background, but I will update the Finance Committee on the discussions that were had at the Planning Committee. So on January 9th of 2024, this topic was discussed at the Planning Committee meeting. There were a couple questions that came from the board. The first question was, is there an insurance coverage on the South University flood wall? So we did look into that with City of Fargo and the authorities' insurance policies, and no, this is not covered under any of the insurance policies. The second question was a request to discuss with the state if there was any additional funding through the State Water Commission for the repair of the flood wall. The City of Fargo did reach out and have a discussion with the Department of Water Resources, and no, this project would not be eligible for any additional state funding. So the discussion was had at Planning Committee of how to deal with this. The recommendation from the Planning Committee was to utilize the City of Fargo's contingency within their in-town flood protection budget to address the costs related to repairing of the flood wall. And so that's, we bring that to the Finance Committee here today for your review and recommendation to the board. I did put a recommended motion in there, and I think I've hit all the high points, so certainly open for any questions if there are any.
Questions from anyone?
Mr. Chairman, I would move the motion as outlined here in front of us. And maybe a comment if there's a second.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Redlinger seconds. Please.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the discussion we've had over the last couple of months on this topic. Look forward to adopting this based on, clarity that the Finance Committee has had 2 or 3 conversations about cash budget, program budget, contingency. As a result, we're moving forward with this. But, the backdrop as well with the discussion is this O&M agreement ongoing. And so, let's not lose sight of the fact of the O&M agreement long-term and what our costs are going to be for that. And I think as we've shared in the previous meetings, this is going to take a little time to put together. So I just think for the record, it's important that that's tied to this.
Very good point. Thank you, Commissioner. I have one question. Is the $4,895,000 an actually firm bid that you have in hand? Or is this an estimate from an engineer, or what is? So, the motion has a specific dollar amount, and I don't know what anyone that wants to can address that. We're going to ask, Nathan is coming forward, a Fargo engineer, answer that question. I want to make sure that if we make a decision on $4,895,000 that it's, so, sir?
Yeah, so that is currently just an estimate. We have not received any bids for this project yet, but we believe pretty confidently that hopefully the number will come below this estimate as well.
Okay. Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, just a comment again, based on a hall conversation Nathan and I had. I hope whoever's designing this really takes note of the discussions we've had about solving this permanently, and not a discussion 5 years from now that it's slumping again, because this is a real challenged area. I think we all understand that from the prior 2 months discussion, but I really hope the engineering firm is listening to what we're saying in the past about this topic.
I'd ask some clarity from you, Mr. Paulson, with the news that Nathan just shared with us, that it's basically an estimate. So if the dollar amount goes above that, you would bring it back to the Finance Committee? Because, again, your proposed motion is a very specific dollar amount. I just want to be clear on the policy of how we would deal with that.
Yeah, that's correct, Mr. Chair. So certainly if the bids came in above our budget, we would have to come back to the Finance Committee for budget adjustment.
So, Mayor Mahoney, you have something?
Commissioner Grinberg, I think from the comments you're making, you want Nathan to know truly to the engineering firm, we want this as a solution. We know that clay moves, clay does a variety of different crazy things, the river does a bunch of crazy things, but it's a feeling of the DA Board Authority. What we'd like them to try to do is give us a solution that somewhat holds stable. So even if it costs an extra $500,000, you'd want that done. So I'm presuming, Nathan, when the conversation was held with the engineers, because we had the failure, which we thought we wouldn't have so early in the project, we want to kind of make sure that this is a solution they feel pretty solid on. And I think that's what really we're requesting, right? Yeah.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Don, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Dardis.
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney.
Aye.
Mayor Carlson.
Yes.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Redlinger.
Yes.
Mr. Grimberg.
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Reitz.
Yes.
Ms. Madrigal.
Yes.
And that is everyone.
Motion passes. Thank you. Item C is the 2024 final cash budget. Will be presented by Mr. Paulson and/or Paul Barthol, Jacobs Company, page 88, and it has been distributed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is still the 2024 draft, certainly here for your consideration for final approval and recommendation to the Diversion Board. This budget does not contain the previous item, so if the Finance Committee finds this for approval, we would want to have in the motion that it would increase the cash budget by $4,895,000. Little has changed from the last few budgets that we presented the past few months. So certainly open for any questions, and Paul is available for any detail. So.
Commissioner Grinberg.
Chairman, I'd make that motion, also noting that the Fargo contingency in town would be reduced by the same amount.
Second.
And I have a second by Mayor Carlson. Motion has been made and seconded with the notation of the in-town sloughing repair. Is there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Don, would you please call the roll? Yes?
Mayor Mahoney.
Aye.
Mayor Carlson.
Yes.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Whitlinger.
Yes.
Mr. Grimberg.
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Reitz.
Yes.
Ms. Madriga.
Yes.
And that is everyone.
Thank you, Don. Item D is a resolution consenting to the issuance of CCJWRD Series 2024 A bonds. We call on Mr. Shockley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a little bit of brief history. 3 years ago, just before we had entered into the P3 contract, which it's hard to believe that 3 years has passed, the Cass County Joint Water Resource District issued a Series 2021 A bonds to refund in part the Wells Fargo loans that had been carried by the city of Fargo and by Cass County, in addition to providing some additional funds for the project. Under North Dakota law, temporary refunding improvement bonds have a 3-year, maximum 3-year maturity. And so it is time to renew those temporary refunding improvement bonds. Under the Joint Powers Agreement, any type of issuance of debt by one of the member entities related to the project has to be consented to by the Diversion Authority Board. This is sort of it's a significant amount of financing, but it is part of the overall financing plan, and it's been planned out as part of the financial plan. And so this is consenting to the issuance. The current 2021 A bonds are set to mature on May 1st of this year. And so we're starting this project process in January so that we have opportune time watching the market conditions. As you're probably all aware, the interest rates are much higher than they were 3 years ago. And so if we see a good opening in the market, the joint board's financial advisor and myself would like to go forward and try to price the bonds at that time. So,
And what is the term of this? 3 years?
yeah, it'll be another 3 years to get us through to the project substantial completion date,
Thank you, Mr.
or
Shockley.
very close.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley. Any additional questions for Mr. Shockley? Mayor Mahoney.
How much is it worth?
These will be $180 million. It's just refunding the prior $180 million. There's no new money. It's just essentially rolling it over.
Move to approve. Thank you, Mayor Mahoney. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Grinberg seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the issuance of the Cass County Joint Water Resource District Series 2024 A bonds for a 3-year term. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Don, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Dardis.
Yes.
Mayor Mahoney.
Aye.
Mayor Carlson.
Yes.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Redlinger.
Yes.
Mr. Grimberg.
Aye.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Reitz.
Yes.
Ms. Madriga.
Yes.
And that is everyone.
Thank you, Don. Item E, which was added, I noted earlier, again, we're going to call on Mr. Shockley for an interest earnings allocation discussion. Mr. Shockley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So a little bit of brief background, and then I'll talk through what the issue is. So under the Master Indenture of Trust, the City of Fargo is the fiscal agent for the project. As part of the duties of the fiscal agent is to manage the cash funds that the Diversion Authority has. Over the last couple of years, those have grown due to the draws from the state of North Dakota. In 2018, when we started this process, a formula was developed by the City of Fargo's finance staff. And at that time, the interest rates were much, much lower than they are today on any interest earning for what they refer to as pooled funds. And that just means they're taking the funds of the city of Fargo that they have in various funds along with the diversion authority, putting that into an account that gets swept every night to maximize the interest earnings. So back in 2018, it wasn't as critical to have a very, very precise formula because the numbers were pretty small, to be quite frank. Fast forward to today, the interest rate on interest-bearing accounts has increased significantly. It went from probably 0.3% back in 2018 up to 5.5%. And so having a more precise formula is really critical to track the allocation of the interest earnings. And so as Fargo was doing its year-end financing, it's discovered that formula was not precise enough and it was over allocating funds to the diversion authority. And I can certainly share more information with any board member that's interested, but you can really see that it started in probably mid 2023 where we started seeing the over allocations. It wasn't an issue at the beginning of 2023, but as the interest rates rose, some of the over allocations were quite significant, resulting in an over allocation of about $1.3 million to the diversion authority in interest earnings. And so to correct that, we talked it through as a team. We meet routinely as a team to talk about finance issues, that the city of Fargo would reallocate that because they are the fiscal agent under the master indenture of trust. That would be appropriately accomplished through what's referred to as a directive letter in that document. So I wanted to explain it to the board first to answer any questions. What I would propose is that we would then prepare a directive letter if you're okay with it, and then next month just make sure that you approve the sending of the directive letter.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley. So this is an informational item only. Anyone have any additional questions of Mr. Shockley? Mr. Peterson?
Mr. Shockley, could we just keep the money and don't tell Fargo?
Too late.
Well,
I just got kicked under the table by Mr. Redlinger. I think I'm supposed to pass it down.
Okay, so I'll take that as a no. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any additional questions for Mr. Shockley?
Well, decimal dust matters, so.
Mr. Chair,
Please.
thank you.
Randy.
Are you able to easily explain what the current interest allocation is versus what the proposition would be if you know that yet?
Yeah, and maybe I'll let
can do
the
that, too.
city's finance director explain it, but we have we have put together the information sufficient to answer that question, so.
I'll try to answer it simply. So the allocation method was, like Mr. Shockley said, set up in 2018 when we first started managing the money, and I think they tried to make it very simple so that they could push a button on the computer and it would automatically generate it. But what it did is it took the diversion money and it took just the general fund, not all the rest of the city funds. So it was disproportionately allocating. So what we're going to be doing now is instead of even allocating it, we're just going to take the average balance that we can calculate from our system. So we know the average daily balance for the month, and our statement actually shows what the average balance was that was paid, the average yield. So we'll just do the math, and that's what's going to be allocated. That seems more fair based on ownership.
Thank you. Just to clarify then, what does it say in the agreement? Because it seems like the misallocation is more so of a system misallocation, but it does require amendment or however you had mentioned.
I don't know that it actually gets that specific, does it?
Okay.
The allocation method in the letter?
Yeah, in the master indenture of trust, the city of Fargo is the fiscal agent, so they have a trustee status of retaining and managing the diversion authority's money. And so technically without the letter from the authority authorizing the action, they really couldn't take any action. So built within the master indenture of trust is because they're acting as our agent, we have to send them a letter authorizing them that yes, this reallocation is correct. So think about it like if you're if you have a bank and they made a mistake like this, as the account holder, to do it the right way, you'd want some sort of consent from the account holder, just to, because it's a lot of money.
I think I'm on the same page now, so it's more so to get the money back rather than the actual calculation.
Yeah, and I think
got
I
it.
was going to work out how to draft the letter, but we'll probably also in the letter just agree to how we calculate the allocation, so there's a written record of that allocation in the future if none of us are around.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Is this just for information, John, or you'll have it next month where we'll probably vote on it? All right, very good. Does any member of the Finance Committee have any additional items they'd like to bring up today? No one? Our next meeting is February 21st, 2024. Anything else? We stand adjourned. Thank you.